An elven warrior trapped on modern-day Earth. Two friends with different destinies meet at a magical school. These are some of the stories we at Electric Lips Comics are working on. You can get your copies of both The Mana Chronicles and Tales of Mithril at elpmerch.com. Support independent creators, explore the merch featuring exciting ELP Comics art with a wide range of designs. Electric Lips Comics. Imagination electrified.
Welcome to They Mostly Pot Out at Night. Mostly, I am Salem, joined by my co-host Graveyard.
Hello.
This is episode 132 of our weekly All Things Horror podcast. Now, Wes Craven is known for his famous franchises, of which there are a few. But he had many films to fill the gaps in between them. And a lot of those don't really get recognition or screen time.
That's very true.
So this week we take a look at a few of his lesser known works and see how his films that didn't quite make a franchise play out. One of the pretty early ones, not his early career, but before he became, Wes Craven.
I'd say a household name, yeah.
Yeah. And then the other two in this are, he already had a franchise at this point, one franchise at this point, and he was trying to, spread his wings, I think, and do different stuff, and they didn't really take off much. I knew of them and had seen them, but not a lot of people have.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So we're doing Deadly Blessing from 1981, The Serpent and the Rainbow from 1988, and Shocker from 1989. So I'll start with Deadly Blessing in 1981. So essentially, I'll just lay out the situation here because it'll make it easier to explain. There's a guy who was like Amish. They don't call them Amish, they call them Hittites. And they
Which
say,
are essentially, more extreme.
Worse Amish. Well, I shouldn't say worse. I should say more strict Amish. So there's a guy that was a Hittite, and then he, went into town and left and came back with a wife that is not a Hittite. So he was essentially shunned by his dad and his family. But apparently he had already inherited a small farm and land from his family, directly connected to the rest of their family.
Yeah.
So he chose to stay. So they're living their normal farmer life with, tractors and electricity. And then the Hittites are literally working the field, right there, 6 feet away from his fence. The Hittites are out there plowing the field. I don't know why they're not using horses to plow, because they're using horses in buggies to travel around, so they obviously have horses. I don't know why they're doing it all by hand. Maybe that's part of their thing. I don't know.
Or their horse wrangler goes, no, you're not putting heavy equipment on the horses.
I guess, yeah. Maybe they're not draft horses. I don't know. Okay, so that's the way this plays out. Now, Ernest Borgnine plays, isn't it Isaiah? Is the head Hittite guy with a ridiculous beard. I don't really know. I mean, the only other person that you're going to know from this film is Sharon Stone in one of her very, very early roles.
I had no idea Sharon Stone was in this.
This is the first time I've seen it, so I was like, oh, wow. I was like, that's Sharon Stone. That's crazy. What is she doing in this film? And nobody else is in it. The main protagonist actress, she left. She never acted again after this film. So there's several actresses in this film that never did another movie afterward. So I don't know if that tells you anything about film or not. So anyway, so what happens is Isaiah has, basically convinced the rest of the Hittites that Icarus, or sorry, not Icarus, what does he call it? Incubus. Incubus is this demon that has somehow infected the land, and that, they have to be perfect Hittites in order to not be affected by it. And since his, son, is not a Hittite anymore, that, they're now agents of the Incubus. Again, I don't think he knows the definition of incubus, but we'll talk about that later.
Not at all. We'll definitely talk about that later.
Anyway, so that's the name of the demon. Anyway, so Michael Berryman, I guess that's another person that's in this film. He is in it. He's like chasing around the neighbor girl, calling her an agent of the demon. So we meet like the neighbor lady and the daughter, who are very, very against the Hittites, and they're like neighbors, friendly neighbors to the the non-Hittite couple, whatever. So essentially, first thing that happens is someone breaks into the barn and essentially kills the ex-Hittite son with the tractor. He dies. Everybody's so sad, right? And then the newlywed wife, calls her two friends to come to the house to like support her in her grief. So like her two friends come from like L.A. That's Sharon Stone and her other friend.
Yes.
Anyway, so they all go there and they're all doing, Jezebel type stuff, riling up the Hittites. The Hittites are trying to like tell her that they want to buy back the land, and whatever, and that she's just, she just doesn't belong here. This is, her family. It was the son's land, and blah, blah. He's just being a big jerk. Then right kind of soon after that, you kind of lean towards thinking Michael Berryman might have done it, because he's the one that was chasing around the girl, and he was like later sneaking inside their barn to like look at the tractor because it's a devil tractor, right?
Yes.
And then he goes to like peep on them, or I don't know what he was doing there at night. I think he was looking for his shoe that he lost when he was in the barn. And then he gets killed by whatever this entity that used the tractor to kill the other guy. So he's out as a suspect, right? So at this point, who knows? There's a long gap between like the tractor kill and the Berryman kill are not that far apart. The next kill is like an hour later. It takes a long time. There's a lot of going back and forth of like scaring people. Like Sharon Stone gets like locked in the barn and like scared, and like Michael Berryman's body comes down, like hung up, and then of course they all blame them for killing Michael Berryman, who's supposed to play like a touched child, right?
Yeah.
Or man-child, or whatever they call him. So yeah, nothing goes on. There's just a lot of going back and forth between the Hittites telling them to leave, and then one of her girlfriends from LA kind of falls in love with one of the Hittites, and he decides that he's going to leave the Hittite order and go out with this girl. And then when they go on their first date, they get murdered and blown up.
Mm-hmm. As you do.
Correct. And but there's like like I said, it feels like an hour between when Michael Berryman dies and when that death. So like there's a very long period of time where there's no deaths. So that one happens. Sharon Stone essentially like has like a mental breakdown and like can't handle what's going on, and they essentially get like trapped in the house, and you don't know who is attacking them, but somebody is attacking them. I don't know, is there anything else that happens in between there? I feel like there's a lot of time, but not a lot of stuff happens there.
I mean, the snake in the bath.
Right. Again, yeah, this is all just like there's scare tactics. Like someone is definitely messing with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, there's a snake in the bath. There's like they were trapping Sharon Stone in the barn, like scaring her, but they're not killing or hurting them. They're just like scaring them and doing creepy things.
Right. She
And
also
then
has dreams about a spider coming to her and like calling her name.
right. Yeah, just spooky stuff. But nothing really happens until the car blows up and then they like attack the house. And essentially you figure out that it's the neighbor lady and her daughter
Mm-hmm.
are doing it. It seems like the mom was the one doing most of it, and the girl was just kind of going along with it. She was at first not wanting to go along with it because she was like in love with the wife, and then like the mom convinced her that, oh, she doesn't love you, she hates you or whatever, and then all of a sudden the little girl was like, oh yeah, she does, and then she was all about murder.
Yes.
So, and then they basically like fight through a barricaded house. Like Sharon Stone gets like slapped and knocked out because she's like hysterical, and then she just sleeps through the rest of the film.
As you do.
Yeah. And so then, and then she shoots the daughter, and then at the very end Isaiah comes in and like helps kill the mom. And then, everybody's all like whatever happy except for I guess the dead lady. And then we get like the very, very end is when you think everything's happy, like a big demon comes out of the floor and grabs the wife, and then they sink into the floor.
Yes.
I guess that's supposed to be the incubus.
Of course.
So, yeah. I don't know. Anything else you want to add in there?
No, that's pretty much all the major things.
Like I said, there's a lot of stuff that happens in between, but it's all just spooky stuff. No real events happen. It's just like people, they're trying to like scare them away somehow. That's it.
Yep. I know you said this is the first time you've seen this. I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've seen it too, but I seem to know a lot about it.
Well, because you watch all them stupid ass YouTube videos that spoil every movie that they talk about. So you know the plot of all these films, you've never actually seen them.
That's fair.
Yeah. You shouldn't do that. Don't watch YouTube shit.
Yep, I still didn't know that Sharon Stone was in it.
Well, see? There you go.
Yeah. So what was your first thoughts on this movie though as a whole?
Again, there's a lot of fluff in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, again, they start out strong. Like the tractor death happens in like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then Michael Berryman dies, like, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes after that. And then there's like an hour of like, ooh, we're scaring you. Ooh, love is blossoming between her friend and the Hittite guy. And it's like a lot of like drawn out fluff. And like kind of like pointless stuff. I don't know if he was like experimenting with things or what he was doing, but like it feels like there's an hour of like unnecessary film here. That and like the parts that I think should have been filled out really weren't. That's basically how I felt about it. It felt like a lot of like useless scenes, and then a lot of like scenes that we should have had to explain what the fuck is going on. We didn't really get. Like, there's not a whole lot of any kind of clues that the neighbor or the daughter are a part of it.
Zero.
I mean, it's like
they disappear. They disappear for a large chunk of the movie.
That hour in the middle, like the girl shows up one time to give them a basket of eggs.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's like, oh, I'm doing my part to help you with the grieving process. Here's a bunch of eggs. Gotta go by. That's literally it.
First off, that's like a month worth of eggs for the chickens.
I mean, yeah, it was like 2 dozen eggs, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that's it. We got no clues. Like, there was like, they were never around when something was happening. We never got any clue or like anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
They were like missing from that hour of the film. Like, we see them at the funeral. And like, I think like when she returns the hat is like at the very end of the film. So like, again, she's missing from like an hour.
Correct.
It's again, there's just I don't know, the hour in the middle feels like it feels very long and feels very useless.
Yeah. Also, I thought it was interesting. They went very, very, Hittite right? But buttons everywhere.
But they're not supposed to use buttons?
I thought that was an Amish thing.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
What's wrong with buttons? Are buttons like the devil's fastener?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. How do you fasten your clothes if you don't use any button?
I don't know. Hook and eyes.
I mean, I know they wear like suspenders, so like they're not allowed to like button their pants. They just have to have like pants that they just step into, and that's it.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'll have to look it up, I guess, because I've done research on the Amish, and I've never seen anything about buttons.
Apparently, it's up to the Amish community.
Okay.
Apparently, using buttons detracts from the simple lifestyle. I don't know how. I feel like buttons are really fast to do.
I know, but that's like they wear shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? I don't know. There's some things that don't make any sense to me. Like, okay, like I said, I'll give you a quick story of like a day that blew my mind. This is why I started researching the Amish. Is like, what the fuck happened? I went to the zoo, right? If you've ever gone to places and there's Amish people, it's probably the zoo or the train station. They're always there for some reason. So I was at the zoo, and there was like a bunch of Amish folks, and they were walking around, and the one Amish dude had a Mountain Dew in one hand and a cell phone in the other hand. And I was like, what? I was like, you're Amish. Like, I was like, maybe if he was hiding it or something. No, he was literally in the whole group of them. Just like on a cell phone. I'm like, how is that a thing? Like, how are they allowed to use a cell phone? Like, I know they don't even have regular telephones. Like, why would they have a cell phone? But I did. I looked it up, and it's. I guess the Amish communities are really, really slow to judge on things. Like it takes years and decades to like if a new technology comes out to make a judgment on whether they can use it or not.
Yeah, I can see that.
And cell phones is a thing that they haven't made an official ruling on, but the communities that have made a ruling on it, they usually allow like one per community. Simply because they're so useful and like kind of necessary. But again, they'll have one cell phone for a community that everybody shares, and that's because again, that's anything that goes against the sense of community. That's what they avoid.
Right.
Like they can use power tools, but they can't use like electric power tools. They have to use like compressed air.
Yeah.
And stuff. It's there's a lot of bizarre. Anyway, I'm not going to pretend like I know everything. I don't. I'm not Amish. I just know there's a lot more to it. How about that? But anyway, yeah. So none of their clothes have buttons. Okay, we're done with that tangent.
Yes.
Well, they're not supposed to, but they do.
Correct. So I thought that was interesting. They had some of the stuff that the less strict communities are allowed to have. So.
Yeah, I don't know. And I'm just saying, like, you can't use buttons, but you can use, like, razors to get that perfectly shaped beard like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. I don't know.
The razor's like 5 feet long. It's okay.
I guess so.
No small razors, because that's convenient.
I guess so. I don't know. I don't know how that works. Yeah.
You want to go into your highlights first?
Hey, sure. Why
not?
All right. Okay, now I'm going to go on a limb here and say Ernest Borgnine, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's fucking terrible in this movie, but he is so fucking terrible that it's hilarious to watch.
Yes.
So it's one of the usually I don't subscribe to the whole like so bad it's good thing. Like most of the time, if it's bad, I just think it's bad. But this is like, I think he like knew what he was doing. He had to have known what he was doing because he's so ridiculous in this film. I looked it up. He was nominated for a Razzie. For this film. He did not win, but he was nominated for Razzie. But yeah, it is. I will use the term. He is so bad that it's actually a good performance. It's entertaining in performance, but he's terrible. Again, Sharon Stone in a very, very early role. Kind of blows my mind. I don't remember seeing her in anything before like Basic Instinct.
No.
It was like Basic Instinct was like she like blew up on the scene. I'm sure she was in shit before then, but I didn't know.
Yeah, there's like 12 years between this movie and Basic
and
Instinct.
I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And I will say that the finale of this film, interestingly enough, is all women.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it's the wife and her two friends, and then the neighbor lady and her daughter. It's all women. The only guy that shows up is Isaiah at the very end. But most of all the struggles and everything that's happening are all women, it's just interesting, especially for 81. That both the protagonist and the antagonist are all women.
Yep.
It's a good time. That's all I got.
Yeah, I also have Sharon Stone. And I thought it was interesting to talk to. I have Ernest Borgnine on my list as well. And he is generally an over-the-top actor. And what's funny is he seems very subdued in this movie, which is not saying a lot for him. But for him, he's not like as outrageous, I feel. Yes, his acting is atrocious in it, but
yeah. I was trying to remember some of the goofy shit that he said, but I can't remember.
Yeah. But I mean, he is actually trying to play it as straight as humanly possible, it feels, which is like had to be like, killing him.
I guess. I don't know. It was it's something. It's a something for sure.
Yeah, it's like telling Nick Cage, hey, don't be Nick Cage. Whoa. Yeah.
I mean, again, he is good when he's not Nick Cage, and he's good when he is Nick Cage. It's just two very different performances.
Oh yeah.
Like you watch him in, Kiss of the Vampire, and then you watch him in Pig. Like two completely different performances.
Oh yeah. But I just thought it was interesting that Ernest Borgnine just seems subdued. But
right. Well, yeah, you get him in this movie, and then you get him in like Escape from New York, which is right around the same time period.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and Escape from New York, he's like his happy-go-lucky kind of goofy self playing the cabbie, right?
Yeah,
that plays like Ernest Borgnine. This does not.
No,
but he's still great. It's just like a ridiculous kind of great that you get to see it. Like you can really get to experience it to understand.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but the way the tub scene was shot, especially in the water, we saw that 3 years later in Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah. I think he perfected that shot of how to get a hand or something in that area and shot, and he just kind of made it more in Nightmare on Elm Street. So you saw, I feel like, a little bit of his mojo, what he brought into a couple years later in this movie. So I thought that was interesting just to see some of the early stuff that like brought some of these shots into our lives. Because like I said, as soon as that camera was in the bathtub, I'm like, holy shit, it's Nightmare on Elm Street. Awesome. I agree, all women at the end, which is pretty interesting. I'll roll into my low points. Biggest one, you ready? Ready? Mm-hmm. An incubus is not a woman.
Well, an incubus is not a woman at all, correct? But an incubus is a demon that only preys on women.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, why all these men Hittites are afraid of that demon? It doesn't make any sense.
Correct. They're calling the women
confused.
They're calling the women incubuses. If they were that for him, they'd be succubuses.
No, he never actually calls them an incubus. He calls them an agent of the incubus.
Okay, so Michael Berryman calls her directly an incubus, right? So
he does, but he's also the man-child. That's not.
I know, and I thought I originally chalked it up to that too. But Isaiah also said she's an incubus.
But he just says incubus.
Oh.
He doesn't call her. He doesn't say you are an incubus. No, he just says incubus, like because he's trying to be short with her. He's trying not to talk to her at all.
Right. I think they should just replace the word incubus with succubus, and it made more sense.
I don't think they should have used either one of those. Either one of those don't fit this scenario. Like, because an incubus and a succubus are the same demon, only one's for men and one's for women. Like, whatever you're attracted to, they appear as that, and then essentially bone you to steal your life energy.
Mm-hmm.
And they can bone you enough that you die. that's what a succubus is, and that's what an incubus is. Again, man or woman, depending on what you're attracted to. They're like agents of seduction. So it doesn't make any sense that a man Hittite is afraid of a male incubus, because that wouldn't be the demon that's tempting you.
Correct.
I mean, or maybe it is. Maybe he swings that way, and that's what he's upset about. I don't know. But I'm saying the way that they use it, they don't understand the definition behind it. I was like trying to find an alternate definition of like what do they mean? Like, why do they keep using this word? There's like cultural stuff that I found in like some kind of weird like North African culture that an incubus does seduce women, but also traps and beats up men to like demasculate them. Is the only thing I found with relation to incubus and men.
Definitely not coming from the English and German.
Right. Yeah, no, nothing at all. Like, nothing at all. The basic European definition is incubus is a male succubus. That's it. It doesn't even have anything more than that. You have to look at succubus to see what it does.
Yeah. And of course, religious zealots. Remember what religious zealot you are. That's bad.
I mean, yeah.
I felt like I was watching The Omen because of the musical score in this movie. When it deals with it was like very like, hey, let's just slightly alter the 1976 Omen music and repurpose it for, demonic things in this movie. So
I think they were really going for that religious fervor.
Oh, I had PTSD flashbacks from The Omen. And of course, the open wide, spire into the mouth.
It's gross.
I imagine that's on your list too.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and it's just interesting, like even the snake scene, like how does she not feel a snake? It's the bathtub wasn't that big. It was a big snake.
Maybe she was fantasizing about big snakes.
Maybe.
You never know.
Maybe. There's lots, just falling in love with, like, what are the chances of two of the same sons from the same family falling for these incubus women from the
they
same
were attractive
farm?
ladies. There was only like one marryable aged woman in the Hittite realm, and it was her cousin.
Mm-hmm.
So like, either you marry your first cousin that's okay looking, or marry these beautiful women that move in next door, that want to talk to you.
Yeah. And
so
that guy destroyed the transmission on that car.
Well,
poor car.
This is also an old car.
Yeah, I mean, not that I know how to drive stick shift, but that's not a first thing to learn to drive on. That's all I got. How about you?
The first two kills were those like ridiculous slow-mo kills. Mm-hmm. I thought it was this like, it's already dragging by that point. Like, you don't need to stretch it out even more, because you're not really seeing much. You know what I mean? Like, the tractor, we didn't see it crush anything. We just saw like, tractor, then guy's face with a drop of blood. That was it.
Yes.
Like Michael Berryman, we see like one knife stab, and that's it. But there was like, with the slow motion, it took like a full minute.
Yeah.
It was goofy. We already talked about the definition of an incubus. Okay, how about the police? Or like a fucking crime scene? Or even if it is an accident, there should be something there. Like the fucking husband dies and nobody gives a shit.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I was so confused.
As the sheriff said, by the time I got phone call, you'd already be dead.
Yeah, but like, yeah, but like, you should investigate it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, well, who goes into their barn in the middle of the night and gets killed by a tractor?
Not many people.
Right. So like, why wouldn't there be an investigation? The police don't even show up until after Berryman dies.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I was just like, I was very confused. Again, like we already talked about, there's so much fluff between the kills, like just pointless, meandering, just waste of time. Yeah, the spiders were like unnecessarily super giant.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, it was in her mouth. That was gross. And then the whole like ghost ending was just, I think, unnecessary. I don't know what the point of that was, and why would it go after her to begin with?
She started it all. I don't know.
She didn't start anything.
She lured him over.
Yeah. Okay. Stupid.
Yes.
That's all I got.
Okay, so what are our olives this week?
We're doing dark rituals because there are dark rituals in all of these movies.
Some of them, like 50.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The next one, there's a lot of dark rituals. Like half the film is rituals, and like half of those are dark rituals. But there is at least one dark ritual in all of these. So.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first for this one?
I can go first. I mean, it's not. I didn't hate it, but again, it's not his best work.
No.
Not his best work. There's a lot of kind of boring, middling stuff, but it's interesting. You know, you can see what he was trying to do and like where he went. You know, from where he was. It's an interesting kind of evolution point. Mm-hmm. So it's worth finding for that. But if I'm judging the film just on the film itself, I'm going to say 4.5.
4.5. Yeah, this is, it's amazing what the sharp turns he makes from Last House on the Left and Hills Have Eyes to essentially then this.
Right. Yeah, it's an odd choice for sure.
And it just feels really weird knowing that like Hills Have Eyes, fantastic movie. Last House Left, hard to watch, but a fantastic movie. Nightmare on Elm Street, fantastic movie. And just like this lull that he has here, it's just like, okay, doesn't really work out, as you said.
Right.
But I also get, I mean, like it is, you have to see it once, I would say, just for Ernest Borgnine, if nothing else.
Right.
And see, Sharon Stone's some of her earliest work that we can recall. So I will give this 5 dark rituals out of 10. Ernest's eyebrows made that half point.
Love this fake beard that wasn't even near his own gray color. It's a different gray.
No, not at all.
All right. So now we fast forward to 1988 and The Serpent and the Rainbow. Just a little side note. Again, I think I mentioned last time that, I already watched this one, so I don't have to rewatch it. I didn't. This wasn't the one I watched. I watched Angel Heart, which is a similar film that also deals with voodoo and people dying and coming back from the dead, blah, 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 blah. But totally different film, totally different actors. So I did just recently watch this one. Angel Heart was the other one that I watched. So I was
okay.
Just thinking, let's go for it.
All right. So Serpent and the Rainbow, we introduced to Bill Pullman's character as
Lone Star.
Lone Star, yes. As he's in essentially Brazil and is talking to a shaman, going through like a spiritual awakening, drug-induced
vision quest
in Brazil, where he playfully plays with a leopard,
a jaguar,
yeah,
jaguar.
And he finds out it's just fake, and he has like an image of a Haitian guy, and he goes back to his plane, who his pilot just has maggots crawling over him, and he hitchhikes his way back from somewhere in the Amazon back to civilization.
200 miles.
Yeah.
They say later on. 200 miles he walked on foot while high as shit on whatever drug they gave him.
I don't believe that one for a second.
I don't think so either. 200 miles in the Amazon that's a hard 200 miles, man. That's a rough walk.
Oh, yeah. I don't think people can go 200 miles through, like, Illinois.
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, flat Earth would be fine and would be hard enough, but, like, the Amazon, there's no way in hell.
No. There's no way he knew which way he was going.
No.
Anyway, he makes it back to the States, and the drug company goes, hey, we got this. This is working great. By the way, we heard of a drug in Haiti that lets people get knocked under without being under and still being awake and all this stuff. You should go there, Mr. Medicine Indiana Jones.
Essentially, yeah.
He's like, okay. And he goes. And he starts meeting with some people there. He goes to like insane asylum to meet, most people speak Haitian, but she has so much of her French accent.
It's French, sir.
Hers is more French than anyone else.
Well, I'm just saying they don't speak Haitian; they speak French.
Yeah. And essentially, he, as they call him, Blanc for white guy, right? He's pretty much not welcome there right away, to the point where like his hotel is like demolished and like blood rituals were done there. But he's talking and he's trying to just learn about zombies, how you create them, and they're zombies because like there was a man that was supposedly died. He died, and we see him at the beginning of the film too, being buried and crying, and then he's like comes back up alive. He's like, oh, that's not him, can't be him. So he's meeting with people there to figure out what is going on there, and if the story is true. Because if it's true, he wants this magical drug to bring back to Big Pharma. We'll get into them a little bit later in our highlights and low points. And learn all this stuff. He kind of sort of befriends some people. Others he really pisses off. He gets to see some rituals of a guy who just essentially goes like into a hypnotic state by like glasses being tapped on. He attacks people, and he gets to see like a Haitian funeral and see what the procedures look like to see what their belief system is, because all of this is part of their belief system. As they point out that Catholicism and voodoo are one and one in their country. They said something about Mary being the same thing as, I don't remember what top of my head.
Oh, but, like Azuziel or something. It was like their goddess of love. But yeah, it's kind of funny because most other cultures, when they adopt Christianity, they have to let kind of like certain exceptions go, because otherwise they're not going to get them to come over. And it's just funny how like different cultures, like, oh yeah, they fully embrace Christianity, but they still also embrace their own stuff too,
like heavily,
right? Which is crazy to me, but it happens. I mean, it happens all over the world. Like a lot of cultures that were assimilated kept a lot of their original culture. It's very interesting. Some didn't at all.
Right. I'd say in the Caribbean, it seems to be that they held on to it a lot more.
They did. Yeah, they did. They did very much so, because they weren't, because they used them as slaves.
Right.
So they weren't very much, concerned with them. As long as they like said they worshipped, Jesus or whatever, they were like, okay, that's fine. They didn't really care if they did their other shit, as long as they like, whatever. They didn't want to think about it too much because they were slaves.
Right. But if you think voodoo, people like, hold on, we got a zombie. Oh shit, really? Hell yeah, sign us up. We like zombies. So anyway, they're just kind of going through this stuff. The Bill Pullman and the woman do fall in love as they do, because they're the two attractive people in the movie.
Okay, I just got to say it. I don't think Bill Pullman could handle that.
No.
I'm sorry. He's a little too white bread for me. I think his head would pop off.
Yes. So anyway, as all that is going on there, he gets kind of like abducted by, let's say, the police state of Haiti.
Yeah, the secret police.
Secret police, and torture. Like, you need to leave. You need to figure out what you're doing here. Blah blah blah. If you're not gone within a day, we're gonna find you and just like kill you or get you out of here. You have to get out. He's like, okay, and he finds a guy who has this magical powder that's supposed to create 10 zombies from that little bit of powder. It's like, all right, I'll test it on this goat. And Bill Pullman does kind of the smart thing of marking the goat. It's like, okay, the goat's dead, but you have to bring it back to life tomorrow. He does all that stuff. He gets back to him, and he's like, yeah, the goat's alive. He's like, yeah, it's not the same goat. It's like, well, this powder is real. It's like, I don't think so. Dumps it into his drink and then drinks it. He's like, oh, you're dead. It's like, nope. And, the one falls off like, how'd you do that? Look, I know magic. And that's the only time we see him use magic, is for that scene to, say he swapped the powders out.
Well, yeah, sleight of hand magic. There is actual real magic in this film, so you have to differentiate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. White guy magic. How about that?
Like, there you go. There you go.
And so, that's all going on there. And he's like, okay, we need to figure this out. And like, the guy realized that he was lying and full of shit. He's like, okay, we're going to kind of figure out how to do this powder for $1,000. I'll show you how I make my powder. And they go through and what's a puffer fish? It's essentially
it's
everything
puffer
poisonous.
fish, like dead lady bones.
Well, from the dead lady bones from the like mashed in from the skull, so part of brains, pufferfish, and other hallucinogenic.
There's a poisonous frog that they put some kind of slug on to scare the frog to make it stronger. Some weird shit. I don't know. It's a bunch of
ferment in a coffin for a day.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of weird Eye of Newt type ingredients.
Right. And he's like, this is the real deal. It's like, he convinces the guy, he's like, I have a really bad enemy. All right, cool. So anyway, as he's waiting for the day at the boathouse, he has visions of being buried alive, all this stuff. And once again, the, secret police come and find him and throw him essentially onto a plane.
And jump through every window and door of the house at the same time.
They essentially just bust down all the walls
at the
of the hut. Yeah. And they put him on the plane. Like, you're out of here. The guy goes, hey, I'll give you the real stuff. Bill Pullman makes it back to the States to kind of test it. And they go, oh.
Well, you're leaving out a big chunk here, buddy.
Am I?
The dick nail.
I said he was tortured.
That's not. Oh, you can't just pass over a dick nail. Come on, man.
That's true.
They capture him, they give him a dick nail, and then they put him on a plane.
Yes. So he finds out, like, oh, this, they ran the tests on animals with this powder. Like, oh, look, they're alive and they just come out of it. Everything's okay. They feel everything too. And we'll get into that point later. And then he starts having like hallucinations of stuff because he realizes the woman is like in danger, and just like a woman at a dinner party tries like stabbing him and goes like has a seizure. And he's like, oh shit, you're right. I gotta go back and save her. So he goes back and he's immediately arrested, like right after stepping off the plane. It's like, you can't be here, but kind of gets captured, and then they're realizing that they're not going to do anything to him, so they find the guy who created the powder, sacrifice him, and are ready to start sacrificing the woman that he likes there. And he kind of comes in there, he gets some sort of protection from it, but it doesn't really work.
Or maybe it did, and it would have been worse if it didn't.
Oh, that's right. Oh, sorry. They also blew dust in his face, and he went and was buried alive with a spider. Makes his way out, is able to save her, and has a fight with the guy who is able to like Superman or Raiden fly through buildings. Now, the guy who's kind of like in charge of the police, and they end up going and fighting, and he's able to save him. And they realize that there's like the Haitian Revolution in 1985 happening at the same time. So the secret police are kind of stopped. The guy kind of like, after fighting, he gets back into the chair. No, sorry. Fighting, he like bursts into flames and pile of bones. And he's like, okay, he's done. And he comes back, flies through the wall, attacks him burnt up, and he has, goes back into the dick steak chair. And of course, Bill Pullman's character does it back to him, and he gets essentially then like the ground opens up and swallows him. That happens twice in these movies.
Yeah.
And kind of happily ever after, Hades out of its revolution. And the movie
happily ever after, his girlfriend is dead.
Yes, she is.
And his friends are dead. The two friends that he made in Haiti are both dead, and his girlfriend in Haiti is dead.
Blanc lives, okay?
He lives. I would call it happily ever after.
Yeah, that's fair. And then he realizes that drug is kind of works, right?
I mean, I guess. I mean, sure.
Yeah.
they obviously don't use it nowadays, so I don't
Well,
know.
there's a caveat. Said they're still studying the facts. They don't know fully what it does. Blah blah blah. It's just a blurb at the end. Right.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that, I mean, if you are given a drug to where you appear dead to everyone around you and you can't react or do anything in any way, and you have to watch yourself be buried alive, how sane are you going to be 12 hours later?
Oh, you're not.
Right, which is why all these people are nuts.
Yes. Yeah.
But they're based on real stories. I mean, obviously, I don't know how real those stories are. I mean, I'm sure they have kernels of truth in them, but
Right.
the powder is apparently a real-ish thing.
Mhm.
But people would do that to get people to work on like their farms for free. They would like essentially make them into slaves.
Right. The zombie is that you are essentially being controlled by someone else.
Right.
It's
Whether
not
whether it's like magic or not, I mean, who knows? But
right. You're just like more of suggestive state where you don't have your basic functions, cognitive abilities, trapped essentially into your own body.
right. Or they do that to you. They give you the powder that does that to you, and then they say, "Well, if you escape, we'll kill your family," or whatever. I mean, it could be as simple as that. Too.
Right. Right. I don't know the last time I watched this movie all the way through, quite honestly. I know I've seen this.
It was a long time ago. I mean,
right.
Yeah. It was a long time ago. I want to say this is probably mid to late 90s when I watched it all the way through.
I'd agree with that. It's just not something that's just on my radar a lot. It's not something you necessarily need to rewatch. It's not new things to catch necessarily. But it's interesting, and that it is this type of voodoo zombies, especially in 1988, considering we have like the Romero zombies have been like a huge part of our cultural thing for 15, 19-ish years, right? The undead that eat people versus this type of zombie. But do you remember your first thoughts or anything on the rewatch for this?
Not really. Other than I thought it was a different movie.
Yeah.
I thought I got the names mixed up. I thought I was thinking like voodoo horror movie. I was thinking Angel Heart. I was like, oh, I just watched that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll go first with my highlights. I think Bill Pullman did a great job of this.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
I think it's interesting that at the firm they're like, don't call them zombies if you don't want to, and they just like call it Zombicell or something like that at the end.
Zombicodone or something.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. Like I said, it really explores the kind of the original zombie themes of voodoo zombies. Like I said, it was kind of a breath of fresh air, I think, when that came out, just to have it in the middle of all the deads and stuff like that. I think the hallucination scenes were great. I think they're trippy as hell, and they needed to be.
Well, I mean, half the film relies on them. So.
Oh yeah. So this is So I mean, this is a very, very visual movie, right? So, I do appreciate that stuff for it, and it's interesting to kind of set it during the Haitian Revolution as well. So I appreciate that. Those are my highlights. How about yours?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. Like, they actually did film it on site in Haiti. So, like, a lot of the stuff was done by actual Haitians, imitating the things that they normally do.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think that they just watched normal things that happen. No, they had actors and extras in there, but at least it was in Haiti with actual Haitians. Well, but the culture is interesting. I mean, the whole voodoo culture is fascinating. Obviously, I don't know much about it. I haven't been around. I've read a lot, trying to understand things, but it's cool. I mean, I read a lot about Baron Samedi simply because you see that iconography all over horror. and a lot of people don't know what it is. They just know like, oh, the skeleton guy with the top hat, right? Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, but some people may know his name. A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's one of the Loa in Voodoo, which is they have a lot of different gods, which are kind of like avatars for the gods, I guess. And there's like different rituals and different gifts to please the different ones.
Yeah, you see him a lot in like New Orleans.
Oh yeah, that's because there's a lot of immigrants from the cultures that did this stuff that landed there. Like Creole is a whole, that's like that's where this stuff comes from. So. But I thought it was interesting. I thought it was good. Like you said, the dreams and visions I thought were fun. And the two characters I think I liked the most was Louis Mosa or Louis Mozart to us white people who pronounce it wrong. I thought he was a cool character. That was the guy that made the powder, and I loved Gaston. He's not really named in the film, but he does in the credits. He does get named. He's the big giant dude that's like the second in command of the secret police.
Yeah,
he was also the guy that literally played Baron Samedi in the beginning when they were doing the funeral. And there was the guy that was like painted up like Baron Samedi. That was him. He had this like fantastic facial hair where it was like he had like sideburns that were made to look like this giant mustache. It was crazy, but that guy was great. I thought he was fantastic. That's all I got for high points. I'll go to low points here. The low point, I would say that sex scene, right? She was doing her job, and Bill Pullman was just sitting there like, I can't handle this, right? That's like that was like the look on his face.
Yes.
I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know if I can do this.
You're in a cave, just bone.
Right? Yeah, it was a funny sex scene. Yeah, of course. I mean, a 9-inch nail through your ball sack. I mean, that cannot be pleasant.
What?
Yeah, and they were like kind of graphic about it. Like he like couldn't walk for days afterwards. Like that was nasty, man. Not good. And of course, like scorpions that come out of mouths. That's gross. Spiders that get thrown in a coffin when you literally can't defend yourself and they crawl on your eye. That's not cool.
Hey, he was keeping him company.
Dear God. I couldn't think of a worse thing to happen to me. Like if I was like literally paralyzed with my eyes open and like something bug was walking on my eyes, like I would, dear God. No thanks. That's all I got.
When I watch these movies and being filmed mostly in Haiti and this being also a cursed film, I just couldn't live in a place where I'm just sweaty all the time. Couldn't do it. No. It just seems awful, and having to sleep with a bug net too. I'm like, I couldn't do that. Being hot and worrying about bugs eating you alive, that does not sound like paradise to me.
That sounds like New Orleans. It's not a place I want to be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I've talked about Big Pharma and the idea of the drug, right?
I think my favorite part was when he's like, "Oh yeah, it's this company. It's based out of Boston, and they make biotech stuff. Oh, what's the name of it? Boston Biocorp." Like, fantastic naming skills, buddy. That was awesome.
Hey, you know exactly where they are and what they do.
Right, I was gonna say, like, he literally just gave a description, and it was like the most generic name you could pull out of that description. I'm like, wow.
Okay, so the idea is to replace anesthesia with this stuff. But as they point out, you feel everything.
Well, they don't know what you feel because they can't ask monkeys what they feel. They're saying that the brain, some parts of the brain are still functioning.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have any idea that if they feel pain or anything. They never said anything about the people feeling pain. They were just obviously awake and aware.
That sounds awful still.
Oh, yeah. No, it for sure is. Like, if you don't know what's happening to you. Right? And everyone says, oh, yeah, I guess he's fucking dead. Put him in a coffin and bury him. Yep. And then you literally have to, sit there and watch yourself be buried alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would not be sane. That's not a sane thing.
Being trapped in your own body like that, it's just
right.
That is like the ultimate. I think that's what a lot of it is. That's why you had the bells in this graves, right? For
That's
people
exactly
being afraid, for whom the bell tolls, people being afraid of being buried alive.
Because it happened a lot. It happened quite often back then because, medical science was not an exact science. Like you said, if, he checks your pulse. Oh, the pulse is weak enough where you can't really tell or he's not really trying hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There you go. And if your breath is shallow enough to not make fog on a mirror, then there you go. Like you're pronounced dead.
Yeah. And I hate that. I remember growing up, one of my friend's mom was going to be a nurse and she couldn't find a pulse for me. And I was not in that state. Like, well, if I was in that state, she would not be able to find a pulse for me. That's scary enough. But yeah, it's just like, I don't think I'd ever want to do like potentially a drug. Is like, you may feel everything. We don't know.
Oh yeah, I know. But that's why they're testing things.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's just, that is like, the worst thing. And most people, and where he was buried, they're not buried very deep in the States. If you're buried alive and you're 6 feet under, you're going to suffocate before anything else.
Well, yeah, you'll also die from being embalmed.
Right. Oh, that too. I mean, let's face it. That's probably why embalming started.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like the embalming process, the first step is like they stick a tube in your leg and suck all your blood out. So like, if you were alive then, you ain't alive anymore.
Right. But yeah, like I said, just the whole idea of being trapped in your own body, and that's always my fear, is having an active brain but a failed body. I couldn't do it. But those are my low points. I will go first. Number of dark rituals out of 10. Like I said, it's a very visual movie. Watch it every once in a while. Is it unique and different? I think so. It's, like you get the iconic scenes that everyone seems to know from the movie, like the poster of him being, covered in ash with blood crossing his forehead is really the last part of the movie. That all being said, though, I enjoy this. And it's one of those cursed films. If you watch that series, they talk about this movie, and that like they had 5,000 Haitian extras show up because they're getting paid. They don't need like 100. They had 5,000 people show up.
Well, I'm pretty sure in Haiti you could what 100 extras normally cost you could pay the same to 5,000 Haitians in UK.
Yeah. So that all being said, I will give this a solid 7.5 dark rituals out of 10. How about you?
Yeah, I do like it. I like it quite a bit. I mean, it's worth rewatch. I don't know if I'll quite go that high. I'll say like 6.5. 6.5 dark rituals.
Okay. Like I said, it's something you need to watch at least once.
Yeah, no, it's definitely fun.
Most,
if you have any interest in voodoo at all, it is a fun experience.
Yeah.
Watch that and then Angel Heart. those are your two voodoo horror movies of the 80s.
There you
go. All right. So now we move on to the very next year, and Shocker. Shocker is the first half is not all that odd. It's like your typical kind of over the top serial killer kind of slasher film, right? It's the second half where we start getting into wacky time.
Oh, and I'm sure you wrote down to like 43 minutes in is where it turns.
Right, yeah, 43 minutes in we actually get Shocker, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So okay, the beginning of this starts out. I'll just make it simple. Is there is a guy who's a crazy serial killer guy who's like doing dark black magic rituals and then going and murdering entire families.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing it enough to where like the police have labeled him like, the killer. They don't know where he is, where he's coming from. I don't know how, right? Because he's like huge. He's very like unique looking. He has a big limp and he uses his own vehicle.
With his name on it.
Right, with his name literally right on it. I don't know how no one noticed. I guess his black magic makes him like invisible or something. I don't know. So anyway, so the cops are all like chasing after it, blah, blah, blah. So Then we zoom in on football hero quarterback guy, which and the hilarious jokes of getting multiple concussions, which
Hey, they're minor concussions.
I'm just saying, at this point in time, concussions are funny. Nowadays, concussions aren't that funny anymore. But essentially, he has a concussion. He like goes home. And I was very confused at first because I didn't know what was happening here. He has his own house.
I looked it up because I thought he was in high school. He's in college.
Right. Yeah. It plays like high school.
Yes.
It plays like high school, and then he goes to his own house, and I'm like, wait a minute. What do you mean his own? Like, he's in a different house? Yes, he is.
Yeah.
I was confused for a while. I was like, what do you mean? Anyway, so he goes to his house. His girlfriend is like concerned about this concussion he has. And of course, she's so concerned she just lets him go to sleep.
As you do.
Right, yeah. So he has a dream to where he goes back to his like childhood home and witnesses his brother, his stepmother, or his foster mother, and his little sister be murdered by this guy, who does see him and try to chase him too, and then like he just kind of fades out, and then he wakes up. It was all a dream. And then he goes home and he finds, his dad calls him. Oh yeah, by the way, your whole family's dead. His dad is of course the lieutenant cop in charge of this whole case because of course that's how movies work.
Oh, wait, we've seen this movie. It's called House 3.
Right. There's a lot of movies mixed into this, but we're just going to follow this one. So he gets to the house and he goes, oh, Dad. Okay. I was also very confused. Is he calling him Dad or is he calling him Don? Because the guy's name is Don, but it was his dad. Sometimes he's clearly saying Don. Sometimes it sounds like he's saying Dad. I was very confused.
Foster dad, too.
Right. But he also says, I'm your father multiple times, which means it wouldn't be odd for him to be called Dad.
Even the guy when he was 7.
Right. Again, so he's like Don, Dad, but he calls his mom Diane. I was like, what the fuck? That's one of my things on my list here. This family dynamics are all fucked up in this movie.
Yes.
So anyway, so he talks to Dad. Dad, I saw this whole thing in a dream. I know who did it. And so at first he's like, blow it off, whatever, fuck off, right? So then he eventually gives in, and he's like, okay, fine. Well, where do you think it is? And he goes, oh, it's this guy's name. It's this guy's, he's a TV repairman. You got to go get him.
Mm-hmm.
And so they go there. The dad goes there, like, fakes a burglary to get in. Classic cop move, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes in, and then, like, all the police that went there with him are murdered by this guy. Comically murdered. He like screams one-liners and shit the whole time. Somehow manages to, like, even though he's like a foot taller than everybody else, somehow manages to get a police uniform that fits him exactly. From this
enough
guy
to the point that
2 feet shorter than him.
He tricked the other 2 cops there that thinking he was the other guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though he was like a giant. Anyway.
Yeah.
So then he drives away in his own vehicle with his name on it again. And the police completely lose him. They can't find him.
Correct.
So then the football hero decides to he's gonna use his dreams to find the killer, and he does it a couple of times with the help of his other football hero friend Jubal Early. They end up finding him, right? And so the cops chase him there. They like at first are like, oh, you can't be doing this kind of stuff. Oh my god, a scream, you were right. Blah blah blah, whatever. So a bunch of other murders happen. And then they eventually finally arrest the guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in movie magic, of course, death penalty cases are, resolved in like a month, right? So like a month later, he's being put to death by the electric chair, right? Of course, his last wish was just to have a TV in his cell the night before. That was the only thing he wanted.
And clearly jumper cables.
Yeah, and right. Maybe he asked for a specific brand of TV that came with jumper cables. I don't know. It was the 80s. It was a crazy time. So he performs a black magic ritual. The TV must also came with like black candles and fucking salt and chalk or whatever the fuck he used. Anyway, so he does this black magic ritual to, like, I don't know. He asked somebody for help and somebody answered in the most comical way possible.
Giant lips out of static.
Yeah, going, you got it, baby.
Yep.
So apparently the god of television speaks that way. Anyway, so then he gets electrocuted, and then basically magically now he can like transfer between people. So he transfers into the lady that tried to like, see if he was still alive, and she got shocked, and he transferred into her body, and then his body became a husk and just burned away.
Well, this is before that. He dies, and they have to resuscitate him, and he bites the guy's lower lip off and attacks the guards to get electrocuted.
Well, I don't think he died. I think he was just fucking with people.
Maybe.
That's what he does. He does what he does the whole movie. He just fucks with people and murders people.
Yeah.
So yeah, he gets electrocuted. He becomes, this whatever magical force that can travel between people. So he eventually gets into a cop, and he tries to go back to Football Hero and kill him because he realizes that the only reason he was caught is because he can see him in his dreams. Oh, but what his last words before he was executed, he tells Football Hero that he's his real dad.
Mm-hmm.
And that Football Hero had shot him as a child. I don't know. It's very unclear. But anyway,
he says being his mom, and he shots him at 7.
He attacked and murdered his mom, and then he shot him in response or something. I don't know. But like apparently he didn't have a record before this point. So again, it's very unclear. And this really isn't visited again. Like we get a kind of a scene where he's like, Dad, is that true? Or Don, is that true? I don't know which one he says. And he goes, don't worry about that. He's crazy. And that's really it. We don't get another answer to that question. He kind of like, the shocker again hints and fucks with him later on, saying like father like son, shit like that. But we don't get an answer.
No,
we don't. He might be just fucking with them. We don't know. We have no idea. I like to believe that he is because it makes it funny. But other than that, whatever. So he gets into a cop. He tries to kill Football Hero. He ends up chasing him through a park. So where the cop like his heart gives out, and then he takes over a jogger who he already shot in the back, and then he takes over a small girl, who then the Football Hero hilariously tries to fight, and then the mom fights him to save the girl, and then he jumps into the mom, and then the mom goes into a construction worker, who then goes after Football Hero. Oh, I guess, sorry. Before he got electrocuted, he did kill his girlfriend, Football Hero's girlfriend.
Yes.
Badly. And then she then appears for the rest of the film as a ghost. And she gives him her necklace and says, this will protect you, and it'll also force him out. So he uses this necklace to like force him out of a couple of bodies to realize that it works. And then when he gets the construction worker, he gets a pickaxe. He literally picks up the necklace with the pickaxe and then throws it into a lake.
Mm-hmm.
So he no longer has this thing. So like he's running and hiding. He goes and tells his football coach and his whole football team of what's going on. They all decide to help him. He needs his specific diving mask. I don't know why they can't just go to the store, or they're in a fucking college. I'm sure they have a swim team.
Well, he needs a diving mask to go diving at night.
Right. But like you can get any diving mask. You don't need that specific one at your house that is going to be watched.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so the coach and Pac-Man, who's like, I don't know, his little football friend. I have
assistant coach.
Yeah, I don't know what he is. So anyway, so they go to the house, and they don't, they're supposed to come back in a half hour. They never show up. So him and Jubal Early go to the house, and find out that the coach and Pac-Man Pac-Man is dead, and the coach has been taken over by the Shocker. They fight. We start to see that like the host person can like fight back against him a little bit. So the coach fights back enough to like basically kill himself. And then at this point, he comes out of the body and he's got nowhere else to go because for some reason he can't go into Football Hero, even though he doesn't have the necklace. But he decides that he can, since he, became electricity, that he can go into the electrical box. And so he goes into the electricity and then ends up in, somebody else. He ends up in somebody.
He ends up in the dad at this point.
Right. Okay. And then Yeah, okay. They arrest him. They put him in the back of the car, and the dad is taken over. And then they go, "Oh yeah, I'll take care of him." And then there's like a big Jubal Early saves him from the car, and then there's a big chase sequence that ends up on the top of a TV tower, to where the dad manages to get him out of his body by like faking a heart attack.
Yeah,
and then he comes out of the body, and then he jumps into the TV antenna, and then he like becomes nationwide TV signals.
He becomes syndicated.
Right. So then off screen, he starts like jumping out of televisions and murdering families again. And they start.
I'll say this right now. They say it at the end, towards the end of the movie, that he killed enough people that equated to the entire population of Sweden, Norway, and Germany.
That's millions of people. I don't think that's possible.
Well, that's what the news said. If you don't like the news, just turn it off.
Yeah, I guess so. It's very okay. So so he like murdering all these people. They're calling it a copycat killer. They end up like arresting Football Hero for being the copycat killer because obviously the coach and Pac-Man were dead in his house and blah 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 blah.
Right.
So then he manages to like get out, and then he works it out so that he's got some like TV guy that's like holding a camera in a room, and he says exactly like 5 minutes to midnight you have to like turn this on and go live. And then he told the rest of the football team, all of them, to go to like this electrical box and then like turn all the electricity of the whole town off at like 3 minutes to midnight or something. And then essentially he starts fighting with the Shocker, and then they both jump into the television,
as you do,
and then they basically like have this wacky fighting thing over like all these different shows and films and like nuclear bomb tests and like all kinds of goofy shit, right? Until eventually he like steals a remote control from some lady and then can now control where they go. And he changes the channel to at 5 minutes to midnight to the thing that when they told him to go live, so they go back to that room.
Right.
And then he holds him there, and someone manages to do freeze frame on the remote control. And it freezes Shocker so he can't move. And he's like, haha, 3 minutes to midnight, I'm going to jump back in the TV and you're going to be trapped here and die. And then he's like, oh, not I broke your watch, so you got the wrong time. And they go, oh no. So the power goes out, but it doesn't. Like the power goes out, but it like fluctuates for another like 5 minutes. Okay, so they're like
rolling brownout. Come on.
Yeah, they're like fighting back and forth, and eventually he jumps into the TV or into the camera, and then the camera blows up, and then the power goes out.
Right, he puts the necklace over the lens of the camera, so Shocker can't go through it. Yes,
right. And then he jumps in the camera, and then the power goes out, and then Shocker dies.
Correct. Presumably.
Right.
I like to think he's hanging with the villain from House 3.
All right. And then since he was at home the whole time, so he wasn't blamed for any of it, even though everybody saw him all over television. But now everybody believes him because they all saw the real Shocker like fighting him across all the channels and everything. Yep. So they all believe him, and then it ends. It's not, I would say, happily ever after again, but like his girlfriend's dead. His family's dead. His coach is dead. His friends are dead. Except for Jubal Early, I guess. But
correct.
Whatever.
Yep. So what was your first thought? Was this your first time seeing this?
No. I've seen it before. I mean, it's goofy. It's funny because it's hard to tell which movie got this idea first. Because there's so many kind of around the same time period that had very, very similar themes and very, very similar like modes. I believe we looked up and that Shocker and House 3 both came out in the same year.
Yes.
Just months apart from each other. So it's interesting. I don't know who came up with it first, but that's where we're at.
Yep. Yeah, I had forgotten that it's essentially two movies.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, before like the electrocution, it's like when I watched it before, I just remember him like traveling through the electricity and the TV. I don't remember him traveling through people. So it must have been a while since I've seen it.
I feel like I'm in the same boat as you. I just like because you remember like the more of the shocker part of electricity, yeah, because that's the cover. That's his powers. That's what you remember. Is that's how he looks. Is he's in that staticky motif
Right.
from any time I remember him as the shocker.
Right. Yeah, it's just it's weird to me because I don't remember him traveling between bodies at all.
No.
But I don't know, because I mean I would have like directly compared it to like Fallen or something had I remembered that, but I did not remember that at all. I just remembered him. So when we watched House 3, I remembered that part, but when we watched Fallen, I didn't even cross my mind that Shocker did that as well. So I don't know. It's been a long time apparently.
Yes, for sure. Do you want to do your highlights first?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and say like this had to have been the dying gasp of the 80s. Because this thing is like you take everything 80s and you turn it up fucking to like 11, and that is Shocker. It is like the killings are like super over the top. Like Pinker, the fucking Shocker, is like so ridiculous. He's like every bad 80s serial killer all wrapped up into one.
Yes.
He's like, he says one-liners like every other word. I mean, constantly saying, goofy shit. I mean, we're talking, the hair metal music, the entire soundtrack is like hair metal bands, right?
Yeah,
it's 1989. The newspapers are featured very heavily. Right? The TV shop, like old school, like literally soldering tubes and shit. I mean, this is like the peak of analog technology, right? Like 1989, peak of analog technology, right before the introduction of digital everything. Like this is the last dying gasp of it, and it is trying to go out with a bang. That's really what I feel this movie is, and if you watch it with that in mind, I think it's great.
Yes.
I think it's fantastic. You see, like this is how the 80s die. is with Shocker. I really feel that way. Like this is the last gasp. This is everything that the 80s was trying to hold on. But great. I mean, it's funny. Like, when did Scream come out? Just a couple years later.
7 years later. Yeah.
Way different. Like
3 or 4 years before Wes Craven coming back to Nightmare on Elm Street.
Right. Yeah. Way different. It's bizarre. I did like. There's two different like TV supercuts here, right? There's the one where they break into the TV shop and the shit that was like playing on all the TVs just in his shop that he was like regularly listening to or watching. Was interesting. It was like they're showing like the skulls and the catacombs of Paris. They were showing like Vietnam War footage. They were showing like Klan cross burnings, like all these like crazy horrible scenes from history. It was interesting. It was like a great background for like a good villain lair. It was fantastic. I mean, the whole I'm your dad thing, and then it just died. I thought it was hilarious. I'm just gonna go with it and say that it's true because it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's just hilarious to me that really didn't like. No one really put together like maybe that's why he can see what he does is because he has that connection. Like no one even attempts to say that.
Not at all. It's heavily implied.
Right. It is implied, but like no one ever says it. No one ever gets it. It's very strange, and he never even talks about it to like his friends or anything. It's very strange. And again, the whole TV Land adventure when they're like battling each other like through like John Tesh. I think it was what Entertainment Tonight was when he was back then. He was doing that. Like test footage. He's like coming into like people's living rooms and they're like fighting across like televangelist stages and stuff. It's ridiculous. It is like way over the top, but hilarious.
And maybe that's where Multiverse of Madness got their scenes.
It is ridiculous. It is something to see. Like I don't know what drugs they were on, but it is a fun experience for sure. That's what I
got. Obviously, you keep talking about Pac-Man. It's Ted Raimi. Come on, man. who has like a line at the end as a ghost.
Okay.
It's Ted. I like Ted Raimi.
Is that Ted Raimi?
That was Ted Raimi, yeah, the assistant coach.
You sure?
The assistant coach, absolutely positive. Theodore Raimi, as he's credited in this movie.
All right.
As you said, the hair metal, like this is like 80s to the T. I completely agree with that.
Lady. Hair metal didn't come into lady.
Yeah. It's funny when the dad like that, essentially the guy melted, right? And the dad goes, "That chair really rocks." I'm like,
There's
what?
nothing but bad one-liners. This whole film is like just bad one-liners over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, but I had to write that one down because that was just like so out of place and hilarious. So like the guy dad would say that.
Or you're about to get murdered by a Barca lounger.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I found it really interesting. All right, so when he transfers between bodies, there's always a tell, right? In Fallen, it's singing the song, stuff like that. This guy's limp goes with him.
Right. Come on. Doesn't matter if their legs function or not.
Right.
His legs, he ceases functioning as soon as he takes over.
Right. So are we saying that his limp is a state of his mental capacity?
Yeah, it's a psychological limp. It's not a
right.
physical limp.
And for having a limp, he sure outran a lot of people.
No shit. That's what was hilarious is the cop chase, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like they cut and cut and cut and cut. Every single scene is like the cop limp running, and then this football hero going, just flying by.
Yeah.
And this dude is like, he's like blowing past the guy, and then the next scene he's like right behind him again. And they do that like 8 times. I was like, there's no way in hell this fucking cop is gonna catch up with football hero. There's no way.
Well, even the rooftops, when he was still Mitch Pigelli, he's still like outrunning the cops.
Yeah.
Like
upstairs.
This guy, yeah,
upstairs, right? Yeah,
and jumping over a building. Gap, yes.
Well, he didn't jump over a building; he climbed over the ladder.
But I'm just saying, he still outpaced the cops, which is hysterical.
Yes, he did. And he was also like, I don't know, he had like crazy strength. He was able to like throw people.
Well, and honestly, like, I was laughing at the rooftop fight where they're like getting antennas and smashing the glass and like bringing his face to the rotating air vent that's on the ceiling. Like they were using everything in that scene to fight.
But like,
with.
you know what would happen if your face touched that? It would stop.
Yeah.
It's not like a fucking
no.
It's not like a wood chipper.
Correct. That's how they're acting though. And the fighting was like the football guy was like drop kicking him. There was like a suplex.
I laughed out loud hysterically when that happened because he was like the Shocker's like kicking the door, like trying to open it, and Football Hero literally does a double leg drop.
Yeah.
Right in his back.
Yeah. And like I said, he suplexes him at some point.
Yes, he does. He definitely does.
I'm like, holy crap. They went like all out in that fight scene. I loved it. It's so hysterical and out of place. I loved it. That's all I got for highlights. I'll go into my low points. Mild concussions.
Yeah, that's the number one on my list too. Is like, concussions aren't that funny anymore.
You got a concussion, coach? He'll be fine.
Yeah, he'll be fine. Send him home with his girlfriend, who then lets him go to sleep. Like, great plan. You guys are really on top of this. Yeah, you're really on top of this.
And it is the most magical concussion I've ever seen. He now can, see and project himself from his dream state. So maybe he's one of those kids from the Dream Warriors from Nightmare on Elm Street. That's the only thing I got for that.
There you go.
The fact it took 43 minutes to Shocker.
43 minutes to get electrocuted in a movie called Shocker.
Yeah. I always ask, like, I understand he asked for a TV, but why does he have jumper cables? As you said, where does he get all this other shit to do his ritual in the jail cell?
27 black candles. Okay, if you said, I need a TV and jumper cables, 27 black candles, a whole bunch of salt, like some dead animals. Like, wait. No dead animals. Okay, we'll give you everything else, though.
Yeah.
Back in the old days, they used to take that last meal thing seriously. Maybe they thought that's what he thought he was going to eat it. I don't know.
I just like if you ask for something that's long enough to hang yourself, I'm thinking you're gonna hang yourself. I wouldn't give it to him.
I want an assault rifle and a box of ammunition.
Well, it is his last meal.
Okay, it's your last request. I guess I have to.
Right. Yeah, and like some of the effects it's quintessential, schlocky 80s horror stuff, like you said, going through channels. And like to the point that they go through the world, like, who was that guy?
Yeah.
Hey,
man. I saw you on the TV.
Yeah, and like I said, they talked about like the countries that body count he released was. And like that's a lot of people.
Yeah,
like
dude,
that is.
You imagine how if you're like jumping into someone's house and murdering people, like how much time would it take you to murder each person?
Well, he's syndicated. Maybe there's multiple versions of him.
I don't think so, because then there would be other versions of him out murdering families while he's fighting the football hero.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that. I was like, that's dumb. That's stupid. Maybe they're just idiots. I don't know. Maybe they don't know how to count.
And this movie really hinges on the special effects for the ghost girlfriend and his staticky state for Shocker.
Right. Like I said, this is like the end of the 80s. Like you think, because, in our minds, we're used to such digital stuff. Like you look at him and it's like, oh, maybe it's like super pixelated, like early digital. No. That's the effect of a tube television on a person. That's what that is.
Yeah.
There's no digital anything in this film.
But yes, like I said, I literally before the show I looked it up. Like, wait, is he in high school or in college? I had to look it up just like you. And like, no, he's in college. Like, oh,
yeah, I was very confused. I was like, is this room like in the garage? I was like, where is this room? Because they showed his bedroom and the bathroom attached to it, but they didn't show that it was in a separate house.
Yeah. Like I said, this movie is Nightmare on Elm Street meets House 3. I feel.
Yeah. It's like House 3 with elements of Fallen. With again, like an 80s action movie turned up to 12.
Yep.
All mixed together.
Yeah, so it's just like, this is, you need to see it. It's what it comes down to. But those are my low points. What are yours?
I already talked about concussions. Again, I could not understand the family relationships. I was like, is he saying Don or Dad? Why? But like sometimes he clearly says Don, and sometimes he sounds like he clearly says Dad.
Mm-hmm.
But like he called his mom Diane even after she died. I'm like, okay, I don't know what this relationship is. And then he's like, I'm your dad, and the guy was like, he's not. Oh, okay, we'll just abandon that plot point.
Yeah.
So the goddamn one-liners, dude. Holy shit! Every time somebody gets stabbed or cut or punched, fucking one-liner nonstop. Okay, and then most of this is okay. His plan relied on him, again, not having ever done it before, asking his ghost girlfriend for the ability to jump into the television.
Yes.
Like, that is a hell of a stretch for a plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then another part of his plan was to steal a remote control from some other person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that he doesn't know. First, he doesn't even know if he can do the TV thing yet. Now he doesn't know if he's going to jump into somebody's living room and steal their remote control.
And he goes back to his own bed to sleep in.
Right. It was very bizarre. Okay, but okay, so whatever. Those things, sure, they're part of the fucking plan, right? So then he hits freeze frame. It doesn't say pause, it says freeze frame, and clearly somebody used a label maker to put the labels on their remote control. So he freeze frames him, and then somehow has control over him and can then throw him all around the room like a Wii remote.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get the freeze frame part. I understand that. But what part of a VCR remote would give you the ability to pick up and, telekinetically throw you across the room? I've never seen a remote control that could throw anything across the room.
Clearly, he clicked the select button.
Right. I was like, where is the throw against the wall button? What is, he's again, he was moving it around like it was a Wii remote. He's slapping him against the wall and shit with it. I don't understand it.
It's the select button and then tracking.
I was very confused. I'm like, how is he doing that? Yeah, so okay. I understand the whole like, yeah, have like block the TV or block the camera so you can jump into it and he can't get into it. But why do you have to knock out the entire town's power? Why don't you just shut off the breakers?
It's crazy enough to. Oh,
I mean, I'm saying, I'm like, why does it have to be that big of a plan? Why do you have to knock out power for the entire city? And what do you just
because
turn it off in the house? I know
the entire football team needs a felony charge.
I guess so. And again, like, why do you need like 30 people to throw a crowbar at a fucking transformer?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, like what? I don't. Again, it was just very. The ending was. I was very confused. I was like, I was with you right up to freeze frame, and after that, I don't know what the fuck happened. Like, I don't know if they just, oh, we need to finish this. Just throw in whatever. But I feel like they lost it after the freeze frame because everything after that doesn't make any sense.
It's fair.
That's all I
got. All right. Do you want to go first then for a number of dark rituals?
Sure. Like I said, this movie is ridiculous. But if you really want to see the 80s go out hard, go out with a huge bang, then Shocker is definitely the film for you. I'm going to give it 8.5.
Wow.
8.5 dark rituals out of 10. I thought it's ridiculous, but like in a good way.
That's a high score for you for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. It is, we talk about like the schlock that the 80s became, but yeah, this is the hell of a way to go out. This is a better ending for it than House 3 was.
Yeah. It's funny because like the people almost like don't even react to the one-liners. Again, it's like the end of the 80s, everyone is so like numb to one-liners and nobody even reacts to them anymore. And I feel like this movie is like embodying that.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I'll agree. I'll also go 8.5 dark rituals out of 10. It's just cheesy in all the right ways.
All right. You got anything else?
No.
All right. So next week we are revisiting our old friend Kevin Bacon again. 3 more films that he was in. Sometimes he's a villain, sometimes he's a victim, but he's always Bacon. So join us for another actor's spotlight. I don't think we've done another. We've only done another Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
We need to do more actor spotlights that are not Kevin Bacon.
I agree.
So anyway, the 3 movies we're doing are They, Them, which is pretty new. It's 2 years old. Hollow Man and The Darkness. I've never seen The Darkness.
But did you watch They/Them?
Yes.
Okay.
That I did watch that, and I did watch Hollow Man. Hollow Man I have not seen probably since it came out. And The Darkness I've never seen. So we'll see how that goes. So remember, we watch bad movies, so you don't have to.
And this has been Graveyard saying, have you checked on the children?
This is Salem saying, long live the new flesh.
Good night.